Hey everyone, welcome to The Cheating. Imagine coming home early, expecting a quiet night with the person you love, only to walk into a scene so shocking, so soul-crushing, that it changes your life forever. I'm talking about betrayal at its worst, the kind that leaves you breathless, furious, and ready to burn everything to the ground. Now, picture this. Your wife, your best friend, and they're not just cheating. They're tangled up raw, in your own bed, laughing like you're the fool. That's exactly what happened to today's storyteller. But instead of breaking down, he did something legendary. He took everything from them. Their money, their careers, their dignity. And, trust me, you're not ready for the revenge he served. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's dive into this story. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening. Logan Hayes, a high-profile financial consultant in New York, had spent the entire day locked in back-to-back meetings. He was exhausted, mentally drained, but he pushed through, knowing that every sacrifice he made was for the life he had built with his wife Claire. A decade of love, trust, commitment. He still remembered the day they moved into their luxurious penthouse overlooking the Manhattan skyline. She had twirled in the middle of the empty living room, laughing, saying, "This is our kingdom, Logan, just you and me, forever." Forever. The word felt like a cruel joke now. That night, as Logan rode the elevator up to their apartment, he felt something gnawing at his gut, an unexplainable dread, like his subconscious was screaming at him to prepare for impact. He shook it off. He was overworked, that was all. But when he stepped into the hallway, he noticed something odd. Claire's car was parked downstairs, but the penthouse was eerily silent. No music, no laughter, no sound of her moving around. Then he saw it. A trail of clothing. A man's suit jacket carelessly draped over the console table. A pair of dress shoes kicked off haphazardly. Claire's silk robe lay crumpled by the living room sofa. His breath caught in his throat. His legs felt like lead as he followed the breadcrumb trail of discarded clothes toward their bedroom. His mind screaming at him to stop, to turn around, to not look. But he had to. The door was slightly ajar. Logan pushed it open, and his world ended. There they were, naked, entwined, not even a damp sheet to cover their shame. Claire was sprawled across their marital bed, her skin glowing with the aftermath of passion, her golden hair fanned out against the pillows. She wasn't just with another man, she was with him, Nathan Sterling, his best friend, his business partner, the man he had trusted with his career, his secrets, his life. The sheets beneath them were damp with sweat. Their bodies were still tangled, still touching, their gasps of pleasure still echoing in the room. And then came the moment that shattered Logan completely. Claire laughed. Not a startled, guilty laugh. Not the nervous giggle of someone caught in a terrible mistake. This was mocking, cold, deliberate. She turned her head toward Logan, her eyes locking onto his with something resembling amusement. "Oh," she said, stretching like a cat basking in the sun. "You're home early." Nathan didn't even scramble for cover. He smirked, as if this was some sort of twisted joke, as if Logan had walked into the punchline of a prank he didn't know he was part of. The room spun. His vision blurred with white-hot rage, but his body was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of the betrayal. "You," his voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Claire sat up, still completely bare, completely shameless. She tilted her head, watching him like a predator amused by its prey. "Oh, Logan, don't look so shocked. Did you really think I was satisfied playing the dutiful little wife while you spent every waking moment working?" Nathan chuckled. "Come on, man. You had to see this coming. She's been slipping away for years." Logan's fists clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms, sharp enough to draw blood. Years. How long? How many times had he kissed her good night while she was still tasting him on her lips? How many mornings had he left for work, thinking he was the provider, the protector, when in reality, he was just the fool financing his own destruction. Claire leaned closer to Nathan, running a hand over his chest, making a show of her affection, rubbing salt into the wound. "It's liberating, you know," she murmured, eyes still locked on Logan. Finally being able to do this, out in the open, not having to sneak around. Logan took a step forward, his breath ragged, his hands itching to grab something, anything, and destroy it. Claire arched a brow. "What, Logan? Are you going to hit him? Are you going to scream? Cry? Be the victim?" Nathan smirked, swinging his legs over the side of the bed, standing fully exposed, not an ounce of shame in his stance. "Let's be real here, man. You don't have the balls." Logan's world snapped. Without thinking, without breathing, without hesitation, he lunged. Logan didn't even remember throwing the punch. All he knew was the sharp, satisfying crunch of bone against bone, the way Nathan's smirk twisted into shock and pain as his body slammed against the nightstand, knocking over the lamp. The room plunged into darkness, except for the faint glow of the city skyline outside. Claire gasped, but it wasn't fear. No, she wasn't afraid. She was amused. "That's new," she murmured, licking her lips. Nathan groaned, clutching his jaw, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Good, but Logan didn't linger. He turned on his heel and walked out of that room, out of that apartment. Claire's laughter followed him down the hallway, like a ghost from the past. "You'll be back, Logan," she called out. "You always come back." Not this time. Logan didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his darkened study, the skyline stretching endlessly outside his window. He could have drowned himself in whiskey, smashed every reminder of their life together, let the pain devour him whole. But he wouldn't. That would be too easy. Nathan Sterling wasn't just some random man Claire had been screwing. He was Logan's business partner. They co-owned one of the most powerful investment firms in the city. And Claire? She wasn't just a cheating wife. She was the firm's CFO. She had access to everything. And now, staring at the cold glow of his laptop screen, Logan saw the truth. They hadn't just betrayed his heart. They had been stealing from him. His fingers moved across the keyboard, scanning through financial statements, transaction records, and private accounts. And there it was, small, carefully disguised transfers, slowly siphoning money into an offshore account. Not just any offshore account. Nathan's. They were robbing him blind. A slow, dark smile spread across Logan's face. They thought they were untouchable. They thought he would just break down and disappear. They were wrong. By sunrise, Logan had made his decision. This wasn't going to end in a simple divorce. This wasn't just about cheating. This was war. The first thing he did was make a call, not to a lawyer, not yet. Instead, he reached out to someone far more dangerous. Sophie Caldwell, an investigative journalist with a talent for destroying powerful men. When she picked up, her voice was groggy. "Logan, do you know what time it is?" "I have a story for you," he said. There was a pause. Then she was wide awake. "I'm listening." He laid it all out. Embezzlement, fraud, corporate betrayal, an affair tangled in financial corruption. By the time he was done, he could hear her grinning through the phone. "If what you're saying is true, I need proof," she said. "Documents, transactions. You'll have everything by tonight," Logan promised. He hung up and moved on to the next phase of his plan. Claire would try to manipulate him. She always did. She would try to twist the story, play the victim, reel him back in with her lies. So he sent her a text. "I overreacted last night. Let's talk. Dinner at L'Atelier?" She responded within minutes. "I knew you'd come around. 8 p.m. Don't be late." Logan smiled to himself. Hook, line, sinker. But before meeting Claire, there was one more thing he needed to do. He walked into his firm's office and called Elliot Grayson, the forensic accountant he trusted more than anyone. If there was someone who could unravel every dirty secret Claire and Nathan had buried, it was Elliot. "I need you to pull everything on our financials," Logan said. "Specifically Claire's transactions and any unauthorized movements from the firm's accounts." Elliot frowned. "That's a big ask, Logan. Do I even want to know why?" "Probably not," Logan replied. Elliot exhaled and adjusted his glasses. "Fine, but if this blows up, I was never here." By the time Logan left, he had everything: bank statements, offshore accounts, evidence of fraud that could bury both Claire and Nathan. And now, it was time to make them pay. That evening, Logan walked into L'Atelier, Claire's favorite restaurant. She was already there, waiting for him in a stunning red dress, sipping on a glass of Chardonnay like she hadn't just destroyed his life. "You clean up well," she said, smiling as he sat across from her. Logan forced himself to play along. "I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe we rushed into last night's argument. Maybe I should hear you out." Her eyes sparkled. She loved this, loved control, loved knowing she could break a man and then put him back together. "I knew you'd come around," she purred, reaching for his hand. "We can fix this, Logan. You and me. Nathan was just a mistake." Lies, every word. Logan let her talk, let her weave her web, spinning her deceit with the skill of a seasoned manipulator. And when she leaned in, smiling, thinking she had him wrapped around her finger, he pulled out his phone and pressed play. Nathan's voice filled the space between them. "Claire, we have to move fast. If Logan figures out we're draining the firm, it's over. We need to clear the offshore accounts before the end of the quarter." Claire's face drained of color. Logan took a slow sip of his whiskey. "I thought you might want to hear what your mistake had to say about you." She blinked, stunned, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "How did you—" Logan leaned in, voice like steel. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" She stared at him, realizing for the first time she was not in control. The next morning, Logan executed the final phase of his plan. By noon, every major financial news outlet had the explosive article about Claire and Nathan's embezzlement. Their assets were frozen. The company board called for an emergency meeting, and by nightfall, Nathan had been arrested. "Claire?" She tried calling him, begging, crying. Logan let it go to voicemail. Then, for the first time in weeks, he laughed. Not because he was happy, not because the pain was gone, but because for the first time since that night, since walking into that room and seeing them naked, tangled, mocking him, he finally felt free. Logan sat in his penthouse, surrounded by the evidence of Claire and Nathan's crimes, the city's skyline flickering outside like a silent witness to the storm brewing inside him. The first blow had already been delivered. Claire and Nathan's embezzlement was exposed, their accounts frozen, their reputations beginning to unravel. But this wasn't over. Not yet. Nathan had been arrested, but Claire was still free, still scrambling, still trying to play the game. Logan knew her well enough to understand. She wasn't going down without a fight. The phone on his desk buzzed again. Another call from Claire. He let it ring. She had been calling him non-stop, leaving voicemails drenched in desperation, the confidence in her voice cracking with every message. "Logan, please, we need to talk." Then another. "You have no idea what you've done. You need to fix this." And finally, the last one, her voice trembling barely above a whisper. "I need you." Logan listened to that one twice, not because he believed it, because he wanted to hear the fear in her voice. Claire had spent years manipulating him, controlling him, pulling his strings like a puppet master. But now, she was the one unraveling. He pressed delete. This wasn't about forgiveness. This wasn't about closure. This was about finishing what he started. He met with his lawyer, Andrew Carlyle, the next morning. They sat across from each other in Andrew's office, floor-to-ceiling windows casting long shadows across the room. Andrew scanned the documents Logan had provided, tapping his fingers against the polished mahogany desk. "She's going to fight you," he said. "She's not the type to just give up." Logan leaned back in his chair. "I know. That's why I need to make sure she has nothing left to fight with." Andrew smirked. "You always did play the long game." Together, they laid out the final steps. The divorce was already in motion, but Logan wasn't just walking away. He was dismantling everything Claire had built on his back. Every investment, every hidden asset she had funneled into secret accounts, he was reclaiming it all. And Nathan? He was already drowning. The SEC had launched an investigation, and Logan had made sure every dirty deal Nathan had ever touched was coming back to bury him. By the time Nathan got out on bail, if he even could, he'd be nothing more than a disgraced fraud with no future left to salvage. There was still one more piece left. Claire wasn't just dangerous because she was ruthless. She was dangerous because she knew how to twist the truth. Logan needed to know exactly what she was planning, and there was only one person who could tell him. Ava Sinclair had been Claire's best friend for over a decade, her confidant, the person Claire spilled her secrets to when she thought no one else was listening. And now, Logan needed those secrets. They met at a quiet rooftop lounge in Midtown, far from the places she and Claire used to frequent. When she arrived, she looked hesitant, conflicted, but there was something else in her expression. Guilt. She knew. Maybe not everything, but she knew. "You want something from me," she said, settling into the seat across from him. Logan nodded. "I need to know what she's planning." Ava sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. "You think Claire's just going to roll over and let you win?" "Logan, you don't know her like I do." Logan's jaw tightened. "I know her better than you think." Ava met his eyes, a flicker of something unreadable passing through hers. Then, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "She sent me this last night." Logan took the phone and pressed play. Claire's voice came through, sharp, edged with anger. "He thinks he's won, but he doesn't know what I still have on him." There was a pause. Then, Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. "If he wants a war, I'll give him one." Logan exhaled slowly, gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles went white. So that was her game. She wasn't just trying to save herself. She was coming for him. Ava watched him carefully. "She's desperate, Logan. She'll do whatever it takes to protect herself, even if it means destroying you in the process." Logan nodded, sliding the phone back across the table. Let her try. Because the difference between them? He was ready for war. The firm had called for an emergency board meeting, and Logan knew Claire would use it as her last chance to save herself. The company was in chaos after the scandal broke. The board wanted answers. Claire would walk into that room, spinning her lies, trying to claw back whatever power she had left. She thought she still had influence. She thought she still had a way out. She didn't know Logan had already won. The night before the meeting, Logan sat in his penthouse, staring at the city below, feeling something he hadn't felt in weeks. Calm. Tomorrow, he would face Claire for the last time. Tomorrow, he would take everything back. Tomorrow, she would finally know what it felt like to lose. The boardroom was silent. Logan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city stretch endlessly below. The skyline had always given him a sense of control, of power. But today, it wasn't the view that grounded him. It was the certainty that by the time he walked out of this room, Claire Sterling would have nothing left. Behind him, the room was already filling with executives, shareholders, attorneys, people who had once trusted Claire and Nathan to lead. Now, they were here to watch them fall. The doors opened again. Logan didn't have to turn around to know she had arrived. He could feel it, the sharp electric tension that followed Claire wherever she went. She walked in like she still belonged here, dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit, her golden hair pulled into a sleek bun, the picture of composure. If he didn't know better, he might have believed she was still in control. But he did know better. Claire took her seat at the long mahogany table, directly across from Logan. Her hands were steady as she placed her tablet on the table. Her eyes met his, cool, assessing. Not a single crack in the mask. Nathan wasn't there. He couldn't be. He was sitting in a cell somewhere, waiting for his lawyers to negotiate whatever deal they could to keep him out of prison. So, she was alone now. The meeting began. The board members spoke first, addressing the elephant in the room, the financial scandal that had torn the company apart, the SEC investigation, the media frenzy, the panic from investors. Claire sat there, listening, nodding at the right moments, pretending to be as shocked as they were. And then, when the time was right, she leaned forward, her voice calm, authoritative. "I know this looks bad," she began, "but I assure you this is nothing more than a misunderstanding, a mismanagement issue at worst. Nathan was responsible for." Logan laughed, a quiet, mirthless sound that cut through her sentence like a blade. Claire paused, blinking at him, as if seeing him for the first time. "Mismanagement?" Logan said, finally turning to face her fully. "That's your defense?" She tilted her head, feigning curiosity. "What are you implying, Logan?" Logan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I'm implying," he said smoothly, "that I have everything." The air in the room shifted. A slow, creeping tension spread as every pair of eyes turned toward Claire. For the first time, Logan saw it, a flicker of something in her expression. Not fear, not yet, but something close. "I don't know what you mean," Claire said, still holding on, still playing the game. Logan pulled a thick folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. "Open it." Claire hesitated. "Go on," Logan said, tilting his head. "Or should I read it for you?" Slowly, she reached for the folder, flipping it open. Inside were bank statements, offshore accounts, emails between her and Nathan discussing the transfers. Her breath hitched. It was slight, barely noticeable, but Logan saw it. He wasn't done. He picked up his tablet, tapped the screen, and a moment later, the audio recording played through the speakers. Nathan's voice filled the room. "Claire, we have to move fast. If Logan figures out we're draining the firm, it's over. We need to clear the offshore accounts before the end of the quarter." The blood drained from Claire's face. Silence stretched. And then Logan spoke, his voice quiet, measured. "How long, Claire?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she closed the folder. "Logan, how long have you been stealing from me?" he asked, his tone sharper now. "From us? From this company? How long have you been sleeping with Nathan while smiling in my face? How long have you been waiting for the right moment to gut me?" Claire straightened, schooling her expression back into something cold, unreadable. "I don't have to answer that." Logan laughed again. "Number you don't, because it doesn't matter anymore." He turned to the board members, gesturing toward the folder. "These are the facts. Claire Sterling has been stealing from this company for years. She and Nathan funneled millions into offshore accounts, and now she's trying to pin it all on him, hoping to walk away clean." He glanced at Claire. "Isn't that right?" Claire swallowed. The chairman cleared his throat, looking between Logan and Claire. "This is serious. If what Logan is presenting is true—" "It is," Logan said simply. Claire clenched her jaw. "You're blowing this out of proportion. These are just allegations. They won't be for long." Logan tapped his tablet again. The second recording played. This time, it was Claire's voice. "He thinks he's won, but he doesn't know what I still have on him. If he wants a war, I'll give him one." A sharp, collective gasp filled the room. Claire's breath caught in her throat. And that was when the fear finally set in. Logan leaned back in his chair, watching her, watching the way her fingers curled against the table, the way she swallowed hard, the way she suddenly realized she had lost. "You asked for a war, Claire," Logan said, his voice dangerously soft. "Congratulations, this is the endgame." The chairman exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Effective immediately, Claire Sterling is removed from her position as CFO. The board will initiate legal proceedings, and full cooperation with federal investigators will be mandatory." The gavel fell. Just like that, it was over. Claire didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Logan stood, buttoning his jacket, gathering his things. He had no more words for her, nothing left to say. But as he walked past her, he paused, just for a second. Just long enough to lean in, whisper close to her ear, "You should have never bet against me." Then he walked out, and for the first time in her life, Claire Sterling had nothing left. Logan stepped out of the boardroom into the long, gleaming corridor of Sterling and Hayes, the company he had built from nothing. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner. The weight of Claire and Nathan's betrayal had been crushing, but now it was their turn to suffocate. He didn't turn back. He didn't need to. Claire was still inside, frozen in her chair, staring at the wreckage of her once perfect world. Everything she had built, every lie she had crafted so carefully, had just collapsed around her. And the best part? It wasn't over yet. Not for her. Not for Nathan. And Logan? He was just getting started. By the time Logan reached his office, his phone was already vibrating. Claire's name flashed across the screen. He let it ring. A minute later, another call. Then another. Then a text. "Claire. Logan, please. Claire, we need to talk. Claire, don't do this. Please. I can fix this." "Fix this?" Logan smirked. "Fix what, Claire? The millions she stole? The years of lies? The months of fucking his best friend behind his back? She didn't get to fix this. She only got to watch it burn." He turned off his phone. There was nothing left to discuss. Later that afternoon, Logan met with his lawyer one last time. Andrew sat across from him, flipping through a thick stack of papers, nodding as he skimmed each page. "You weren't lying," he muttered. "You really planned every single step of this, didn't you?" Logan leaned back in his chair. "I had years to prepare, I just didn't know it at the time." Andrew exhaled, setting the papers down. "Well, it's done. The divorce settlement is finalized. Claire gets nothing. Not a single penny. Her accounts are frozen under fraud investigation, and since she embezzled from the company, she forfeits all of her shares. She's not just losing the money, she's losing everything." Logan nodded. He already knew this. He had made sure of it. "And Nathan?" Andrew asked. Logan's lips curled into a slow, satisfied smile. "Oh, Nathan's already taken care of." Nathan Sterling walked out of the courthouse, his tie loosened, his face pale. The cameras flashed around him, reporters shoving microphones in his face, throwing question after question. "Mr. Sterling, are you pleading guilty? Is it true you used offshore accounts to launder millions? Do you have a statement for your clients?" Nathan kept walking, his jaw clenched, sweat beading on his forehead. His high-powered legal team had managed to keep him out of jail for now, but Logan knew it was temporary. The SEC was on him. The IRS was on him. His investors were fleeing. He was bleeding out in real time. And then he saw Logan, standing across the street, leaning against his black car, arms crossed, watching, waiting. Nathan stopped, his face twisting in anger, in humiliation. Logan gave him a slow, almost mocking nod. And that's when it happened. Nathan snapped. He stormed across the street, shoving past reporters, ignoring the shouts of his lawyers, until he was standing right in front of Logan. "You think this is over?" Nathan hissed. Logan didn't blink. "I know it is." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "You think you can just ruin me? Destroy everything I worked for?" "You did that yourself," Logan said calmly. Nathan let out a short, bitter laugh. "And what? You think you're the hero in this? You think you're some kind of victim?" Logan stepped forward, voice low, steady. "No, Nathan, I'm not the hero." He leaned in, just enough for Nathan to feel the coldness in his words. "I'm the one who wins." Nathan's breathing was ragged, his entire body shaking with rage, but Logan could see it in his eyes. He had nothing left, nothing to fight with, nothing to hold on to. He was a dead man walking. And Logan, he was free. Nathan took a step back, then another. He glanced around, as if realizing for the first time that no one was coming to save him. He was alone, just like Claire, just like they deserved. 3 weeks later, Claire finally broke. Logan was sitting in his penthouse when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. There was silence. Then a quiet, shaky breath. Logan, her voice, soft, fragile, so unlike the woman he had once loved. He didn't speak, just waited. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I have nothing left. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the city lights. The same city they had ruled together. The same city where she had betrayed him. Good, he said. A broken sob escaped her lips. Please, please don't do this to me. We were everything. Logan let out a slow breath. No, Claire, we were nothing. Another sob, desperate, hollow. Can we just talk? Please. I need to see you, just once, just to... Logan ended the call. Then he blocked the number. It was over. Truly, finally over. That night, Logan poured himself a drink and stepped out onto his balcony, letting the cool breeze wash over him. He looked down at the streets below, at the world that had kept turning despite everything. For the first time in a long time, he felt light. This hadn't been revenge, not really. It had been justice. He had loved Claire once. He had trusted Nathan once. But love and trust meant nothing when betrayed. They had tried to take everything from him, but in the end, they had destroyed themselves. Logan took a sip of his whiskey, the burn spreading through his chest, grounding him in the present. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking back. He was looking forward. And this time, no one was going to stop him.